Not only have I found more evidence of a fourth boat, not only have I found a lie in their timeline, but I have also discovered a deep political connection, not only to a former governor of Mississippi, but to Turning Point USA.
The more closely investigators examine Nolan Wells' final hours, the harder it becomes to fit every detail into one clear timeline. The group had traveled to Horn Island together, and Nolan was with them when they set off. Yet when the boats finally made their way back to the mainland, Nolan was no longer with the group. What happened in the time between those 2 points remains a key focus of the investigation. One of the earliest concerns involves the different accounts about the boats themselves.
So first off, this picture has surfaced in which it's clearly the group of boats a little bit further out in the water altogether. Now here is what is supposedly Bart's boat. We can see the Garmin on top. We can confirm this black boat from this other picture. We can see Wyatt's Triton right here, and we can confirm that by the motor. As you can see right here, has that black stripe on the white motor. Now in between the two boats is the Palm Beach. You can clearly see it labeled, and it's got that stripe, right? As you can see, the stripe is there. And yet there's this design right here and no Palm Beach. And you may be like, Jay, that doesn't prove that it's a different boat. Maybe we just can't see it, even though it should be right there according to this picture. But if you look in this video, you can see that there is a black propeller right there. See black propeller, and you can very clearly see the Palm Beach right there on the side. And if you look really carefully in this photo, you can see right there a black propeller. There's another boat on the other side of these three boats. And given the lack of the name on the boat and the black propeller, I'm going to assume the Palm Beach is on the other side, which means there's 4 boats right here. So Wyatt had his buddy's boat already hooked up to the back of his truck. He said he and Wyatt and his other buddy went and got ice and filled up the boats. And Wyatt went and put the Palm Beach, his smaller boat, into the water. And we know that there was a second boat, the Triton, that was driven by Wyatt. Wyatt had 2 boats in the water. Who was driving his other boat?
Warren Hudson explained when he first spoke with investigators. During his public interview, Warren said his first contact with police came on July 7th. He said he shared everything he knew with investigators, including the names of everyone involved. However, the original Marine Patrol report appears to tell a different story. According to that report, deputies spoke with several of Nolan's friends around 1:30 in the morning on July 5th, only hours after Nolan disappeared. And what those friends reportedly told deputies that night was significant. They reportedly said Nolan had decided to stay on Horn Island with an unidentified woman and planned to come back later. That information was entered into the official record almost immediately. The woman initially described as unknown was later identified as 19-year-old Katie McCormick. Katie's sister, Gracie McCormick, later said publicly that Katie had been on the island with Nolan that day and that their family had been in contact with the Wells family. But Katie's version described something very different about what happened. Based on information shared through her family, Nolan did not deliberately choose to stay behind. He believed he would be leaving the island along with everyone else. If that account is correct, it would directly contradict the explanation given to investigators in the early hours after his disappearance. Another detail also raised questions. Katie reportedly sent a message to a mutual contact soon after the group left, saying she had heard people shouting. Warren was reportedly aware of that message and had a photo showing it. Yet when officers were gathering information the next morning, Katie apparently wasn't the girl they were told to speak with. Instead, investigators were given the name of another young woman who reportedly said she hadn't seen Nolan in about a year. That difference matters, because those first few hours were when investigators were beginning to build the initial timeline.
Nolan was on Wyatt Pyron's 22 Triton. On the way out, I went with my buddy Bart because we had a lot of friends from college coming down, and I called Bart that morning. I was like, hey man, can you take your boat out? And he was like, yeah, well, my dad's decided not to go, and I'll take the boat and I'll take you and your friends. Of course, I mean, he's a buddy of mine. And so Bart pulled up at the dock, and I mean, I rode out there with Bart and a lot of the girls that go to college with my friends and I, and Nolan rode out on the Triton, and then we had a Palm Beach, 18 Palm Beach. There was 4 guys on that. There was like 8 people on the Triton, and then there was 8 or 9 people on the Triton, and then there was the rest of the group, which was ranged from maybe 10 to 15 or 16 people.
Now wait a minute. So Warren already had a boat hooked up when he woke up that morning. I'm assuming that that had to be the Triton that was hooked up, right? Then he said that Wyatt went and put his smaller boat, the Palm Beach, into the water. Then Warren said that he was the one who drove the Palm Beach to their friend's dock. Assuming that Wyatt drove the Triton to the dock and Bart drove his own boat to that dock, who drove the Palm Beach out to the water then? Because he said that he got a ride in with Bart, even though at one point during the interview he said all of his stuff was on the Palm Beach. So it sounds to me like Warren was the one driving the Palm Beach. I'm also like, what parent would let their kid, who's obviously going off to party, take two of their boats and let their drunk friends drive? Like, it isn't making sense to me. I mean, maybe these parents are just shitty parents and irresponsible. Then he also said that he contacted Bart that morning to see if he could come. And Bart was like, yeah, I can give all your friends a ride, blah, blah, blah. According to him, there were 10-ish people, 15 people on that boat. So where were those people originally supposed to ride in on? They'd been planning it for weeks. They were excited about it. Why did Bart have to suddenly step in and take all these people? And remember, Bart said that his dad had canceled going out on the boat that day, so he could do it. Something's not adding up here. I think there was an adult somewhere in this mix. It would also explain how they all thought quickly on their feet with the sea tow. And I wouldn't be surprised if an adult didn't come out there and just go off with other adults that were also on Horn Island and let the kids hang out with the boat. Here's where things are going to get interesting, folks. There are more GPS coordinates in the report than what we have seen publicly. I'm going to play you a clip from the interview, but remember, at 5:30 is when they started picking up regular speed, all right? It's right here, 525, speed miles, 30 to 35 knots. So here we go.
Planed off and you have water in the boat and you're hauling, we're going pretty fast. We're going probably 40, 42 miles an hour. And so all that excess water that was built up in the boat is coming out of the boat. So, I mean, that's what we had to do. So we ran into Fort Bayou and we didn't just run straight to my buddy's grandparents' house. We ran into Fort Bayou. A couple of us jumped in the water, and Wyatt, the whole reason for the stop was so Wyatt could hop in and put the plug back in the boat. So then after that, we went and docked it, and I went back to my buddy's house, and we ate and napped for a little bit. It was a long day at the islands.
Now you heard him. He said that they took off going 40 miles an hour and they didn't go to his buddy's grandparents' house, but they went to Fort Bayou to go do a plug thing. Except right here, 5:44, vessel arrives at El Camino Road. 8 minutes later, then it departs from El Camino Road and headed east into Fort Bayou. So right there we have a lie. The boat did stop before going into Fort Bayou. 6 minutes later, it comes back to El Camino Road, and the vessel departed El Camino Road half an hour later, headed southwest to St. Martin Bayou, and then turned southeast into Biloxi Bay Bridge. Then they went back to the Bayou boat launch. Then the boat was taken to Cardinal Lane, which was Wyatt's residence. Now, because I am an absolute genius, I was able to find it. This was where they left and where they came back that day, then came back several times. Now, first off, why aren't we seeing footage of them returning that day? We know that Nolan was with them when they left, so why do they have the security cams from that morning, but not that night? Whose grandparents lived there? Jax Patalo, whose family owns a pharmacy. It goes back deeper than that because George Patalo Sr., which is Jax's great-grandfather who is deceased, as it turns out, his great-grandfather was appointed and served on the staff of Mississippi Governor Cliff Finch. As you can see, I've confirmed Jax's relation to him. And as it turns out, Cliff Finch, well, he was in the Mississippi House of Representatives from 1960 to 1964 and supported racial segregation and backed the racist governor, to preserve segregation in the state. The federal grand jury conducted a 3-year-long investigation into his administration and several state agencies, and they were all accused of corruption and mismanagement. Finch was never found guilty himself, but some of his aides and appointees were indicted. And those sort of political connections seem to trickle down through the generations, so now we know why the governor got involved. And I started looking into the lawyer that's handling the defamation case from the Bart family. So from 2015 to 2018, he was state director of Americans for Prosperity. Then in 2018 to 2020, he was vice president of Stand Together while being vice president of Americans for Prosperity. Stand Together is a Charles Koch nonprofit, and Americans for Prosperity is a libertarian conservative political advocacy group affiliated with Charles Koch and David Koch. And if you don't know who the Koch brothers are, they're fucking evil. Guess who's one of the major funders for Turning Point USA? Major donors for the Koch brothers also are primary financial pillars for Turning Point USA, specifically their campus operations. And guess who used to serve as the director of urban engagement? This is now my third time making this video because they keep taking it down because they don't want you to see what I have found. Katie has dry snitched, y'all. Here we see Katie's Snapchat where she's wearing a teal swimsuit and she's with a girl in a blue and white striped swimsuit. On this video of the 3 boats, you're gonna see a girl in a blue and white striped swimsuit right here on Bart's boat. And right next to her with the same long wet hair is a girl in a teal swimsuit on Bart's boat. Make sure you have your brightness turned all the way up because here we have Katie in a teal swimsuit and look at her head. She is wearing a white hat. Oh look, the video of the boat getting towed. Teal swimsuit, white hat. And that's not all, folks. Again, turn your brightness all the way up because right here we've got somebody wearing red trunks. Oh, and look what we have here. Red trunks. And here's those same red trunks on the shore right after the fight with Tristan. Katie is claiming that she allegedly caught a ride home with somebody named Marty McGrath. It just so happens that a Marty McGrath is the co-owner of the Biloxi Bay RV Resort and Marina in St. Martin. Here it is, and my, that is a massive dock way out in the water. And would you look at that? It's right next to the grandparents' house. Now, in that report with the GPS coordinates, didn't they say that they went southwest towards St. Martin Bayou? Yeah, that's right, it did. And it also took them 45 minutes to get to that boat ramp over there that only takes about 6 minutes on land. And I know you don't realize this yet, but these are not your friends. Be a hero. Do what's right. But I'll give you a quick little rundown. Teal swimsuit, white backwards baseball cap. Teal swimsuit, white baseball cap. Red shorts, red shorts, red shorts. Bart's boat, girl in striped swimsuit, standing right next to a long-haired girl in a teal swimsuit. Teal swimsuit, striped swimsuit. First off, we remember these GPS coordinates that were plotted for us, remember? Those GPS coordinates were taken from Wyatt's boat and they were plugged into Google Earth and they developed a PowerPoint slide that we saw there that mapped out all of the points. So I decided to overlay those Google points on top of the points of the research that I'd already been doing. I discovered some interesting stuff because if they were just overlaying it on Google Earth, it should have been easy as cake, right? Well, I cannot tell you how many hours I spent trying to perfectly overlay this. Like, look at the islands in the middle here. I get them lined up and then other things won't match up. Like you'll notice, like I said, these islands, look, they aren't moving, but everything else around it isn't working. So right away, my instincts are telling me that somebody manipulated this image to cover something up. Of course, that is alleged. I can't prove that, but you know, it's supposed to just overlay. So honestly, I just did the best I could, and I mostly just focused on the top half, trying to get like the marina and the grandparents' house they went to all line up. So now we can really follow which way this boat was driving and the kind of stops it seemed to be making. And if you'll notice here, it goes right next to that marina that I was telling you guys about with the Marty McGrath, which is who, according to Katie, that she got a ride from. So past the marina, as you can see, it juts out almost like it was pulling up to this dock. And then there's these 2 houses here, especially this house, where it seems like the boat pulled into the docks there. Then it went all the way down here. There's a little like lock area here, so you have to go through here. And it went to the bridge. And I was like, why did they go all the way to the bridge to turn around? But it turns out right here is a big old fishing pier. And then right next to that is the Ocean Springs Yacht Club. And a lot of these families are connected to the yacht club. But before I go on, I want to play a portion of this audio that's supposedly like a voicemail that has been going around. It hasn't been authenticated, but it has important information. Because I'll be honest, it sounds genuine to me and it works with my data. So hold on.
But years ago, I'm just going to go back with Katie. And we'll be right behind y'all. We were all going to the same house, the same place. He was like, I'll be right behind y'all. Y'all go ahead without me. I'll see y'all. Like, I'm literally going to be right behind y'all, whatever. So,
So first off, all of us were gonna go to the same place. I'm gonna go in with Katie, meaning Katie was supposed to be at that party with them. Or at least whoever Katie was with was supposed to be at that party, right? But that's not the important part. The important part is the name of the person who was throwing the party was Ava. Now, I found Ava. I'm not gonna put her name out there, but simple Google searches will find this information. And I was able to basically just Google her name and find her address. And so the party was actually right in this yellow area. Again, I'm not gonna be like pointing out people's houses, but I found it. After they leave this pier that's right next to the yacht club, they go all the way back and then they hook around and they go right next to where the party is. And then that's when they finally go and take the boat out of the water. Now, it seems to me like they were dropping people off, like, because look how it goes in a little bit, almost like it was pulling into this pier at the marina, like I suspected. And they were just making the rounds, dropping people off before the party. Now, her family and Wyatt's family, Warren's family, they're all connected. They're also part of the yacht club stuff. All of these rich families are super close, super connected. They're taking each other's kids on vacations, etc. Well, like just in May, there was a joint birthday party. In the background of this birthday party from the beginning of May, there's Warren's mom, there's his little brother, and right there in the background is the mayor of Ocean Springs, Bobby Cox. In fact, here's another picture of him from the party, just in case that profile view wasn't enough for you. Oh, and he was tagged in the picture. Oh, and remember Lieutenant Carone, the first person on the report that we see when Nolan's mom called him missing? Well, as it turns out, someone that he's related to, I can't pinpoint exactly how the relation is, but their maiden name is the same as his last name. Yeah, turns out they have the same last name as who? The girl whose party it was. And I have confirmed that that woman is mutual friends of the mother of the girl who threw the party. And I'm gonna go ahead and just wild guess theory, this is alleged, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that the reason they waited so long to tell the mom was they were waiting to make sure that he was on shift. And this is why I'm thinking more and more that they brought Nolan back to the house. Everybody got their stories straight and stuff, and then they waited to tell Nolan's mom until he was going to be on his shift and taking that phone call. Which is probably why nobody was sent out to look for him that fucking night. That's why we don't have any footage of them going back to the grandparents' house up there. That's why no pictures from this supposed party ever came out. Let's talk about what I talked about in this. Go back and watch the video I posted yesterday for more details. The party that night was allegedly at this girl's house that I will call Ava D. Right here in the yellow is where the party was at. You could almost perfectly plot out every dock that they stopped at on this little trip of theirs before they went to the boat dock. I also discovered that Lieutenant Patrick Carone, you know, the person who first wrote up that very first report after Nolan's mom called in, someone that he is related to apparently married into Ava D's family, allegedly. But like I said in my last video, I show my work. I also discovered that Warren's mother apparently had a birthday party just weeks before Nolan's disappearance that was attended not only by the D family, but the mayor of Ocean Springs. Do y'all remember the girl whose name was given to the police and they went and they questioned her and she said that she was on a completely different island and hadn't seen Nolan in a year? Well, I found a picture of her from last 4th of July. I'm not going to tell you which one of these girls is her, but I bring up this picture from last 4th of July because does anybody recognize something here? Well, I don't know about you guys, but that looks like the same swimsuit to me and the same hair color. Not necessarily the same person. I'm not saying that two people can't own the same swimsuit, but that's a bit coincidental for me. She also appears to be wearing the same tiny gold necklace. What this means, I don't know, but I think Crump's team needs to find her. And I spent hours the other day going through these people's pages, trying to get a feel for the social connection. I can tell you with certainty that Katie is not a part of this crowd. Her family is not affluent. And not only that, it seems like her mother is going through something very bad health-wise. I'm not going to get into details on that. She is visibly sick or visibly recovering. And let's not forget that these people are all doctors. I also want to say while I was going through all of these people's pages, I went through like 30 kids' pictures. There is not a single video, not a single picture of Nolan with any of these kids. Y'all are best friends, y'all are buddies, but there's not a single picture of him.
Meanwhile, another piece of evidence was helping establish the physical timeline. GPS data reported by CBS News showed that the boat did not leave Horn Island until around 4:30 p.m. Warren had previously said he last saw Nolan around 3 p.m. That leaves a 90-minute gap. In a case focused so heavily on Nolan's final known movements, an hour and a half is important. Then another development came into focus, the emergency call. A recording obtained by NBC News captured someone from the group contacting emergency services from the western side of Horn Island. The caller said the boat's bilge pump had stopped working and that the vessel was taking on water. The dispatcher asked whether everyone on board was safe. The answer was yes. Everyone was reportedly accounted for, yet the GPS information and emergency call together revealed something significant. The group was still on or around the island after the time Warren said he last saw Nolan. And when the boat eventually left, Nolan was no longer aboard. His phone was. That detail would become one of the most unsettling parts of the case, raising a question investigators still needed to resolve. If Nolan had knowingly decided to remain behind, as the early explanation claimed, why was his phone returning to the mainland with the same people who said he had made that decision? And what exactly happened during those 90 minutes before the boat finally departed? Those questions became even more important as investigators turned their attention to the phone itself. The boat was not the only thing that returned to the mainland that afternoon. Nolan's phone came back too. After Nolan did not return home that night, his mother, Christine Wanley, began searching for her son. The phone's location eventually helped lead someone to the device, and a friend recovered it. What they reportedly discovered on the phone raised yet another concern. Messages had been deleted. That finding became one of the most contested details in the case. Warren Hudson later addressed the issue publicly, saying no one in the group had any reason to access Nolan's phone. He denied that anyone had handled it and also denied there was anything on the device that anyone would have needed to remove. But the phone's physical location was not disputed in quite the same way. It was on the boat, not on Horn Island, not with Nolan, and not with the person the group said had simply decided to stay behind. That distinction became increasingly important because the original explanation relied on the idea that Nolan had intentionally remained on the island and planned to find another way back.